I think we're trying to aim a little bit higher than that, though, and obviously it would be so big for the franchise just in terms of their national perception. Again, assuming that people watch the Thursday night game. I know a lot of NFL people just kind of write it off as not. That there were very few competitive contests early in the season. They've had a couple decent games here lately on Thursday nights, but it would certainly do a lot for the national perception of the Browns if they could somehow pull out a W. And the NFL is just crazy enough that could happen. And we'll see what the Browns are made of tomorrow night. We'll see if they can translate some of this stuff to a road game and get out there and perform.
What's messed up with those Thursday night games is you had all those bad ones, and it was in the front half of the schedule, which was the half that was on the broadcast TV as well. They had the simulcast for the first 8 games on CBS. Now, the second half of the season, those games are just NFL Network games. So, of course, that's what happened there. But I'll tell you what, man, a couple of things to keep in mind, and I wanted to ask you about something, but Andrew Hawkins, the Browns are already limited enough. They're not going to have Cameron, barring a miracle. They're not going to have Jordan Cameron at all. I'm just telling you that now. So you've already got your limited weapons offensively. Andrew Hawkins, I know he's going to try to play, but there is the possibility that he may not be able to go, which means next man up again, even more guys would have to step up there. But speaking of guys stepping up, and the Browns have not said this, so this could be me just giving them credit for something they didn't do. I'm curious if you think, do you think in any way, obviously Crowell has missed the last 2 games. The first one was about fumbling the ball against Pittsburgh. We know that. Do you think that part of holding him out last weekend, my gut tells me it was for tomorrow night. It was knowing that you were going to have 2 tired teams on Thursday night, and you've got a fresh, pound-them-in-the-face running back that you can throw out there with fresh legs on Thursday night. Maybe they'll use that to their advantage even if that wasn't the plan. But part of me says, hey, we're going to hold out one of these guys to have a bit of an advantage going into Thursday night football. And I hope that the plan is to use the fresh Crowell to beat up a tired defensive line.
Well, I suppose that makes some sense, Jerry. I hadn't really thought of it that way. You don't think about a rookie who's had only a handful of carries all year as somebody who needs rest to be fresh for a football game. But, I suppose that could have been part of their thinking. I think really it was more a function of, we can't, in a tight game, we can't play a guy that, fumbled 3 times in one game. And then last week, I think they were just really trying to decide who they can trust, who can go out there and perform, and they tried Tate and Wes. I think Wes certainly got the better of it. And you've also heard the coaching staff say over the course of the year that, and it's true, of course, it's easy to understand, that it's tough to have 3 running backs, right, and use them all and be effective with any one of them. And so that presents a problem. That continues to be an issue, at least in the coaches' minds, that hard to keep 3 guys happy, hard to keep 3 guys feeling good and competitive and getting some continuity, getting some rhythm, however you want to phrase that, if you're trying to rotate 3 guys into the game. So I think maybe that might be a piece of it as well. But like I said, your thought there is something I hadn't really considered, and that may be one of the part of their thinking.
And I wasn't meaning it as far as you have to, because I'm one of those guys, too, that goes, hey, you guys are 20 years old. You don't need to be saved for anything. I didn't mean it like saving the kids. I just meant, hey, that's because everybody's sore. Everybody's sore a couple, 2, 3, 4 days after a game. And, man, it helps to have a couple of guys that are just ready to spring out and go, But, hey, even if that wasn't the plan, I would think the Browns could use that to their advantage here tomorrow night because they're going to need to establish a running game, as we know, as best they can on the road here. It's going to be interesting, man, too. See how Brian Hoyer shows up, which way the offense goes. If Hawkins plays, he's got the I used to play for these guys and they didn't think I was worth this much money thing on his shoulders. So there's a lot of things at play. And don't forget, too, Cincinnati's banged up, too, as well as the Browns. Cincinnati's going to have several issues issues there. I think Hall, I know Malaluga. These guys haven't practiced this week, so they may be down 2 or 3 key defensive players as well, which is something that the Browns could use to their advantage here offensively. So both teams both played, both teams beat up. They both have to. I like that when people were asking both teams this week about the short week. They're like, hey, they had it too. So we're just all tired and cranky. Let's just go out there and play some football. So I expect a good, hard, cranky AFC North football game tomorrow night.
Yeah, we could be looking at one of those typical AFC North, 6-3 at halftime kind of games. But because both teams have been playing reasonably decent defense, and the Browns defense I think has been getting better, coming from a really tough early stretch in the first few games that they're giving up 28, 30 points a game or so. Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the Browns are going to have to throw short and intermediate. I'm surprised, frankly, that the Browns have not thrown to the running backs more. I think in the preseason, I think both West and Crowell and even Tate, to a lesser degree, showed good hands coming out of the backfield. They did a little bit of that last week. Brought Crowell in the game and threw the ball to him. I think the first play he was in. But I think they need to do more of that, just if for no other reason than there's so few receiving options that keep defensive coordinators up nights before they play the Browns. I mean, there's just not a lot of people that scare you on this offense, especially with Cameron out. So, and then obviously Gordon. You're just going to have to mix it up, and you're going to have to run the ball. Penton said this week that he felt better about McDonald. I mean, what's he going to say? No, he's horrible. Yeah. But he did say that as the weeks go by, he gets more and more acclimated to what they're trying to do, and hopefully this week he can just avoid those grass stains on the seat of his pants that he got last weekend, and this team can look like they know how to run the ball for the first time in a month.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. Dan Wismar, J-Rock. We're talking Browns and Bengals. And now let's shift the gridiron to another focus here coming up. 7-1, 4-0 in the Big Ten. Early season stumble and a game circled on the team's calendar. You could be describing either team in this one. Ohio State, Michigan State. After the new playoff rankings come out, it's number 8 and number 14. No, not much difference. Ohio State jumped a couple of spots. Michigan State right where they were at last week here. That's going to set the stage for it. Under the lights, primetime, ABC, the big one here. And it comes this week. And I know you're fired up. I am. These players are fired up on both sides of the ball. This is because of the lack of competitiveness. A lot of people have said this. You're never going to take the edge off of course, Ohio State and them guys up north. But because of the lack of competitiveness on the other side of that, much like we say that with Steelers and Browns and stuff, Michigan State has kind of stepped in there as the number 1A rival for the last few years of the Buckeyes.
Yeah, that's right. And Urban Meyer calls them, they're the king of the hill. And until somebody knocks them off, they're the Big Ten champions. And what you've got this weekend is 2 long Big Ten game winning streaks. Ohio State is sitting on the record tying 20 in a row that they achieved last week, and they're going for the record to break Jim Tressel's record of 20 set in 05 and 07. And Michigan State too has won 13 in a row. Of course, the Buckeye streak is regular season Big Ten wins. You got to qualify that because, of course, they lost to the Spartans last year in the Big Ten championship game, and that's where the revenge factor comes in. The other thing that people are noticing this week is that Urban Meyer doesn't really have a signature win over a ranked opponent. He's 31-3 at Ohio State, but he really doesn't have anything that he can hang on his wall that looks like a real trophy in terms of a big win over a top 10 team. He doesn't have one. Doesn't have any at all since he's been at Ohio State. And so, he was asked the other day if he felt the pressure because of that, and his response was, I'm paraphrasing here, I think he said, I could give you the coach speak and say I don't feel it, but I feel it. So he's very candid about it, and he understands that as good as his record has been with this team, it hasn't been over elite opposition, and this could be a trophy for his office wall if he can pull this one off.
And I'll tell you what, before we even get into anything else about that, what does your gut say? Just looking at, the way the Buckeyes are coming into this thing, how do you think? Do you think they're where they wanted to be by the time they had this game circled as well? I know things happened earlier in the season, but do you think that obviously you're never where, as good as you want to be, but do you think they're where they thought they would be when they said, here's where we need to be when the Spartans hit the schedule?
I think so, with the exception of the obvious the stumble, the performance against Virginia Tech. But in terms of having their team ready to play this game, I do think they like where they are. After Penn State, Urban was not happy with the offensive line. He had thought that they were getting it together, and that game showed him that, well, maybe they aren't quite there yet. So he went into last week with some things to prove that way, to try to get that offensive line tuned up and have them performing at a high level. Penn State did a few things to take away some things the Buckeyes like to do. Buckeyes like to run jet sweeps and bubble screens. They like to get the ball outside to their playmakers. And Penn State was, blitzing corners, off the field side and sometimes, blitzing from both sides, and that really just sort of hindered their ability to get that ball out quickly to the sidelines. Michigan State does a lot of the same thing. So I think to succeed this Saturday, the Buckeyes are going to have to throw the ball more in the middle of the field, and Barrett likes the middle of the field. I think the tight ends are going to have to be in play. I think the short to intermediate game to the wide receivers is going to have to be in play, because I think that some of that perimeter game that they like so much is going to be limited by just the unpredictability and by the speed and by the blitzing off the edge that the Spartans are going to invariably do, because that's what they do. The other thing to watch for is some trick plays. We all know that D'Antonio has the guts of a cat burglar, and he does this stuff in big games. So you can definitely look for some, maybe a fake kick, fake field goal, fake punt. They run the flea flicker kind of play with the running back Humphrey, pitching it back, and so you can look for all kinds of stuff like that, because D'Antonio, he'll pull this stuff out when the the chips are on the line. So look for that, and I think Urban may have a trick or two up his sleeve too. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see some razzle dazzle out of him this Saturday. I mentioned Monday, I think the Spartans defense lost a lot. They still have the big kid, Shalik Calhoun, and on the defensive line, and they're solid all around. But they lost a lot of talent. They lost a lot of defensive backfield talent last year, and they got some good kids. Drummond is tough, but they don't have the defense that they had a year ago. Let's put it that way. And the Buckeye defense, much maligned as they were last year, and rightfully so, they're now 9th nationally in defense overall. So they have been playing much better, and Bosa, just a beastly kid, and all these guys are coming around. The defense has been playing much better. The Spartans really rely on a couple of key players. I mean, Tony Lippett turned into a great receiver. Maybe great's a little bit too strong a word, but he's got to be one of the top receivers, if not the top receiver in the Big Ten. And Humphrey's an outstanding running back. But if you can neutralize Lippett, they're going to really have to rely on him, especially on third downs. And you take that kid out of the game, or just limit his productivity, and I think you can really hurt what the Spartans are trying to do on offense. The Buckeyes certainly going to rush the passer. I think they're just going to have to watch for plays that are kind of sucking them in with that pass rush. They run a lot of screens. They run some throwback types of plays, and you're going to really have to watch out for that sort of thing to neutralize that pass rush that D'Antonio will do. But I do like the Buckeyes' chances here. They are ticked off. They've got this game circled. They consider it a revenge game. They're hungry, and I think that factor just might be enough to put them over the top. It's tough to win up there, but I do like the Buckeyes' chances. I think both games, the Browns and the Buckeyes, are going to go down close, maybe within a field goal. I think the Browns come up short, but I think the Buckeyes come out on top.
Yeah, I'm with you on that with the Buckeyes and the Spartans here. And, of course, you brought up that defense. I mean, really, it's kind of fitting. It comes back to this after the way that went down last year. And Connor Cook did what he did with the defense and the passing, that you'll see how they react this year. You talked about some of those